As you can imagine, it was the title of this game that caught my attention. It's a point-and-click game with a similar looking art style to Burn Me Twice, which I did a previous review on. It's a student project made in Unreal Engine under the name OMF Productions by students from the Copenhagen Academy of Digital Arts. It loads straight into the menu, giving you settings options for graphics, music, FX, and dialogue volume, and that's pretty much it. I went straight into the game to find it's actually voice acted. You're a dwarf named Bongus, and your adventure starts in the bathroom stall of the inspired restaurant Rocco Bell. It shows you the controls: left mouse to interact and pick up items, right mouse to inspect items in your inventory and in your environment, and escape to pause. If you want to use an item, you click to select it, and then click on what you want to use it on, and you can combine inventory items to make new ones. Your entry to the problem-solving mechanics starts with you finding your way out of the bathroom since the door is blocked. Once you get outside, you realise that all your fellow dwarves have been turned to stone, and that one of them was blocking the doorway. Wandering about a bit takes you to the only inexplicably non-frozen person, the king, Wolfram Rockbottom. You get some dialogue options to talk to him, and he explains to you that Antagon Stonegaze, the Demon King, surfaced from his world and turned all the dwarves to stone. There is no explanation for why he did this, or why he leaves the king unscathed, but you get told that to fix it, you have to put the Axe of Kindness back together, which is currently laying shards at his feet. To do this, you need to see Derlin the Wizard in the human world. You are their only hope, according to the king, because of course it would be too helpful for him to get up off his throne and do something instead of sitting there in his castle full of stone statues. You then have to puzzle your way out of the dwarf castle as you're trapped by all the stone people, and you need to find items to get the solution, which requires some exploring. The game closes you off from some areas at the beginning, such as the forge to fix the axe in, and the big hole the demons came from. There were a couple of things that came up here, namely that the camera sometimes zooms in closer to certain areas, but this doesn't always trigger reliably. It's not the end of the world because you can still interact with whatever is in that area, but I'm not sure if the parameters are just a bit iffy. Another thing is that you click to move where you want to walk if you need to interact with things. But on certain objects, the game doesn't know to auto-navigate around them, so you can get trapped on the edge of objects and then have to click a few times to work your way out of it. On getting out of the dwarf castle, it's a very short trip to the human city, but they don't like dwarves, so you have to puzzle your way in using things in the surrounding two areas, which is your grandma's house and a forest clearing. Once you get in the city, you find the wizard and he sends you on a set of what are essentially fetch quests to find replacement parts for the bits of the axe, such as a magic replacement handle, a gem to give it power, and a magic hammer with which to assemble it when you reforge the axe head. Before that though, he asks you to find him a pet. Once you've got all the ingredients, he helps you make the gem you need, and then when you get back to the castle, you're allowed to enter the forge and put the axe back together. You chat to the king one last time, and then get a very brief cutscene jumping into the hole to face the Demon King. And that is where the game ends. Story-wise, as you can see, it's solid, but very short. The puzzle aspect adds a bit of time to the overall gameplay, totaling about an hour to an hour and a half, but there's no resolution to the story in this case. You don't see the dwarves being unstoned, you don't get to see the Demon King again other than in a cutscene. The entire game is just coming out of a bathroom, finding some lore, and then mending an axe. There are still a lot of untouched questions, like why did the Demon King want to turn the dwarves to stone specifically since he isn't attacking the human city? If he wanted to take over the dwarf kingdom, why is the king still okay and sitting on his throne? Why is the dwarf king telling me that the human city is on the surface when the dwarf castle is also on the surface? This Demon King busts to the surface with an entire army of demons, destroys parts of the castle for an unspecified purpose, one gets trapped under some rubble, and then they all just decide to go back to hell and give up for some reason. You don't get to see the dwarves being saved, you don't get to see how the Demon King gets defeated, the game just ends and you're expected to believe it happened because you have the magic axe. It's a bit underwhelming. On average, the puzzle solving wasn't too difficult. Most of the times I got stuck or confused was because I'd forgot about the ability to combine items in my inventory, so I came to the right solution of what I needed, but the game made me put two things together to achieve that aim, even when one could have done the job. For example, the wizard, when asking you for a pet, gives you a ton of negative preferences. It can't be loud, furry, hairy, jumpy, or energetic. He says no to cats, dogs, birds, all sorts. So my instant thought looking at my inventory was, pet rock. Easy. But it wouldn't let me give it to him. Bongus carries a book about stones right from the start, as he is a rock broker, and even in that book it hints that the stone is commonly used as a pet. I didn't get why it wouldn't let me use it, until I realised that the game required me to draw a face on the stone with some chalk first before it would accept it. When I was a kid, pet rocks didn't even need features, so I guess the wizard was just extra picky. A similar situation happened where I wanted to go down a mine shaft, but I couldn't without a light. I had a candle, which I thought was the solution, but it wouldn't let me use it. I was trying to light it in case that was the issue, but it wouldn't let me do that. Turns out I had to attach it to a helmet, and it didn't even require me to light the candle, though the game never prompted anything about needing a helmet to go down there. For the most part, the items you need to solve puzzles do make some sense. And in order to solve the puzzles, you pretty much have to just pick up everything you can pick up. There was one puzzle where I got a clue and legitimately didn't figure the clue out at all. I needed a code, and the only hint was a picture. The code was in the picture, but when I looked at it, I saw nothing, and just guessed the lock and got it right first try, which was actually quite funny. The heaviest area that effort seems to have been put in this game is the writing and the characters. There are a few references to catch in this game, from a Skyrim reference of a skeleton taking an arrow to the knee, to a Lord of the Rings reference. Background characters have a bit of personality, such as a couple of dumb guards that get fooled by a grandma disguised twice, a bard who doesn't actually know any songs at all, 3 pizza makers who are definitely not Italian mafia stereotypes. The world of the game is bright and interesting, and the characters add a bit of personality too. The writing has humour through it as well, such as winding up the king by asking him to repeat the lore over and over, the voice for the demon Scree Rattlebones being almost a Skeletor rip-off, but starting with you being mean to each other then having a genuine chat. The music is fairly simple but sets the tone, the voice acting is good throughout, and there are various voiced characters, though with the bartender sometimes her dialogue gets cut off a little bit soon. The sound effects are good, with the bard's terrible strumming still being audible in other parts of the town to keep that link of your location, even with the perspective changing. The visuals are nice and colourful, the character animations are good to give the game movement and liveliness, and the area designs are nice as well. My overall view on this game is that it's a sprint. It achieves what it wants to with its mechanics, it's had effort put into the writing and the voice acting, but it only builds just enough of the world to carry the story, and it doesn't carry the story through to the end. It gives you as much as it needs to justify the goal of reassembling the axe, which is what it seems to have centred on, but it gives you no more than that. I don't know relatively how difficult it is to make a point and click compared to other games, and whilst the puzzle mechanic is sound, it's nothing so new and innovative that I don't think they could have spared some time on adding a tad more to finish off the game, either with some additional cutscene or a small segment at the end where you talk to the Demon King and resolve the story. I can't say it's bad because it works, it's stable with very minor visual glitches, it has personality and effort in the writing and the voice acting, but for me it just didn't have the impact it could have using those endearing characters to solidify its own world and story. It seems to have priorities more in being self-aware and referential than holding its own in places, and for me it just doesn't land as well as it could. So for that, I'm going to give Bongus Bright Eye and the Great Axe-Stravaganza a 6.5 out of 10.